Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to InRangeTV. Today we have stage 3, the final stage from our World War I commemorative two-gun match. I'm psyched. This is the close quarters combat one.
Yeah, this is stage dry, as you were trying to say. I understand that. So that's 3, of course. But
Don't worry, they'll all be speaking English after we march into Berlin.
That's becoming true, isn't it? But that's a whole other issue. The linguistics of the world is a funny thing. That's a whole other conversation. This is an interesting stage because we actually titled it Influenza. And you start laying on the ground as though you were sick in an infirmary. This is, of course, late 1918. And guess what? I think it's arguable that while the American entry of the war absolutely made the German condition worse, the reality is a good argument for what actually won the war or lost the war for the Germans was the Spanish flu.
I would take exactly the opposite. I think the Spanish flu is something that definitely had a negative impact on the German army, as well as some of the but it is the entry of a couple million American soldiers that was definitively the death knell for Germany in the war.
All right, you can make either argument, but the Spanish flu absolutely caused an incredible death toll across the planet.
Yeah.
And it affected the German army worse than any other military at the time.
It was really, like, we haven't had a pandemic to the extent of the 1918 flu since.
This is Black Death type stuff.
It really is. In fact, if you go to Europe and you look at the battlefields, you will find a tremendous number of burial sites, of tombstones, with deaths in the spring of 1919.
On that note, there's actually a graveyard here in Arizona near the ruins of a place called Sasco, and the graves are all late 1918, all Spanish flu. That thing cut a swath across the planet. But that being said, you're laying on the ground as though you're there in the infirmary, probably dying from the Spanish flu. I don't know if the bullets are better than an American bullet, but you get attacked. The medical aid station gets overrun. At that point, there's a handgun on the ground that is loaded. You have to roll over, pick it up, and engage a bunch of targets from prone. Then you leave the handgun behind, get your rifle or your light machine
gun,
load it, and from 3 positions, there are 3 paper targets that you have engaged with at least a minimum of 2 hits each per our standard scoring.
How about, like, 5? I'll go with 5.
5 is better than 2. You might have better 0 hits that way. Then you run over to the other bay, and there are 2 steel targets at about 50 yards that require 2 hits each.
With rifle?
With rifle.
All
or
right.
light machine gun.
So I don't want to dump all my ammo.
No, you probably want to keep a little around, or reload on the move.
Easier said than done.
Let's see what happens with influenza.
Yeah. So, Carl, what are you thinking about?
I don't know, war and stuff. All right.
Ah! The Bosch!
Stopping power!
Got a surprise for you, Fritz!
Come on, Ian.
High right. High right.
Come on. Out of ammo. That's it.
All right.
He knows how to work that rifle. Yeah.
All right, so stage 3, the Spanish flu influenza.
Yeah,
How'd
I
that
feel
go?
fine.
You feel fine?
I don't know. I managed to not contract it, I think.
Oh, really? I think the Americans got out of that a little better than the Germans did in terms of the actual Spanish flu. However, worldwide, the Spanish flu hit hard.
Yeah, well, Americans too. There were a lot of American like labor troops who were in Europe who died from the Spanish
And
flu.
brought it back to the U.S. too,
That
I'm
too,
sure. I
yeah.
mean, that's the thing that comes with faster travel, planes and ships and all that, as disease moves with it.
Yeah.
So, how'd the stage go?
Actually, pretty well. So I realized I forgot to mention this on stage 2 last time, but I actually swapped handguns.
Okay.
I was feeling not comfortable with the 0 on the Cimarron gun.
Okay.
So I had brought a backup gun just in case, and that's my Ballister Molina.
Okay.
I switched to that between stages 1 and 2. And now at the same time, those targets are a lot bigger and a lot closer on this stage and number 2.
Sure, sure.
But I think the 0 is also better fitted to me or something on that Ballister
Hey,
because
whatever works.
I burned down those pistol targets on this one.
Cool.
And then, now the funny thing for me with the show shot was I knew I was going to shoot the paper through the windows from the hip.
That was your goal right at the end.
Oh, yeah.
You know, this is a
'Cause-
stage that had elements that were absolutely show friendly and maybe not so much show friendly right at the end.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, the end was my fault. That
Well,
should have been fine.
let's get to that in a minute.
But, so I knew I'm going to shoot it off the hip.
Okay.
Like, that's part of the point. Walking fire from the hip, close range. That's exactly what this is intended to do.
Okay.
Lay down, suppressing fire in a way that a bolt action can't.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you got 20 rounds, the ability to essentially drop singles or multiples.
Yep.
And that kind of thing, whether you're hitting the target or not, is suppressive fire.
Exactly.
And in terms of raiding a trench or jumping into an enemy position or just trying to keep them away, that has something. This absolutely does not.
Attacking a freaking aid station.
Yeah, I mean, how many of these do you need to essentially equal that?
Half a dozen.
Probably. Yeah, fair.
So, I pick the thing up, I'm going to load it, and I'm doing this left-handed because I'm not thinking about it. And when I'm shooting from the hip, well, left hand doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm not using the sights at all. So,
Okay.
so I do that all left-handed. And then I run down to the rifle, the last 2 targets.
Yeah.
And because the safe direction is the muzzle has to be pointed that way, well, I'm holding this left-handed. So I keep doing it. And then I get to the table and I just throw it down on the bipod and take a sight picture and start shooting. And it was about 4 rounds in before I realized, odd, I'm shooting this left-handed.
Okay, so like on like the Nambu machine guns, which have similar sighting systems, you can kind of drape your head over and get a sight picture.
Nambu's fairly easy. The Bren gun, you can do it. Turns out on this, you can actually do it. But it wasn't a very good sight picture.
Okay.
And as a result, I had 18 rounds in my mag. I had 2 mags. See, I damaged 1 mag in the first stage.
Yep.
That left me with 2 good magazines for the rest of the match.
Mm-hmm.
I dumped the first one through the windows.
Yes.
Because gotta do that.
Yeah, of course.
And that left me 18 rounds in 1 mag. As you said, they're 20s, but I'm downloading to 18 because my mags are 105 years old.
Yeah.
And I just want to treat them a little bit more gently. So
Sure.
18 rounds should have been enough to get 4 hits, but it wasn't because I never practiced left-handed.
Well, on the paper,
And
you got almost clean. You had 1 -1 and 2 -3s, I think it was.
a 3 and 2 1s.
Okay, that's what it was. All right.
And in my own defense, I will say that one of those ones was a headshot in the -1 section of the head of the target, which, whatever. I think if you get hit in the head with 8 label, you're...
So you seem high on that particular paper target. Fair enough.
Yeah, well-
That guy did survive.
He did, but I bet he didn't do a whole lot more fighting in that battle.
Probably not. So interesting, but you got to do that. But then when you got to the end, there, you just couldn't quite get the last 2 hits.
Yeah, and then when my second mag was empty, it's like my pistol's back over there, and I've got no more No bullets.
Oh, excuse me, sir. Do you have any more bullets?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
I need
okay.
my A gunner. Where's my A gunner with his backpack full of magazines?
Fair enough. So, in that regard, of course, a bolt-action rifle is absolutely the last thing I would ever want to pick, besides maybe a flintlock or a percussion muzzleloader.
I don't know. Maybe you could find one a little bit longer.
Yeah, this is a little. Yeah, I mean, this is the short rifle. Well, no, this is the full-length rifle. I mean, of course, they slightly shortened it later, but not enough to make enough of a difference, really. So, I mean, but this is one of the questions that came up in the Q&A, is that this ran okay, but someone asked, why would people use pistols when you've got a rifle? Well, in World War I and World War II, the reality was, especially in World War I, a semi-automatic anything was better than any manual action, especially when you're dealing with the ranges that combat actually occurred at.
And especially in a trench or an enclosed area.
Talking what, a couple yards?
Yeah.
Right, so, but I mean, even across no man's land, a lot of the combat was 25 to 50 yards. So the reality was, this was completely wildly overpowered. It took almost halfway through World War II people to figure out, gosh, maybe we should do something with that.
Well, you know, the solution they came up with in World War I, on both sides, was grenades.
Yeah,
You look at the trench raiding parties, you'd have a couple guys with rifles. You know, a group of 10 guys, maybe 2, 3, 4 have rifles. And a couple of them will have pistols. You may have a couple guys who just have edged weapons, and a couple guys who have big sacks of grenades.
Or a freaking club.
Yeah.
Trench clubs. Now, that said, I did shoot a C96 broom handle Red 9, and it is an awkward pistol by modern standards, but reality is it was reliable. Yep, it's fine. It's got 10 rounds on tap of semi-automatic fire. You put the stock on that like Stormtrooper did and jump into a trench, you've got a pretty...
not bad.
You've got quite a bit of fire supremacy that you would absolutely not have against bolt-action rifles.
Yeah.
Until you run into a show shot. Yep. So, it's an interesting issue. Of course, the Germans at the end brought out the submachine gun, the MP-18, but that's right at the end of the war. Really, they didn't get a lot of practice with those things.
No, very little. Most of that was post-war police.
Just like the shotguns on the Americans, not really a lot of that happened.
No.
Yeah.
So he hated those shotguns.
There were more MP-18s used in combat than those shotguns by far.
There's a huge myth about the shotgun.
Yeah.
I'll leave it for Othaius to blow the lid off that one.
Oh, promoting other channels. But no, that's true. Othaius will absolutely do a good job on that. So in regards to the match in general, I think it was a wild success. It was a long one. We had a lot of people out here actually doing the World War I theme. And it was really cool to have us back into the shape that two-gun should be, which are these longer stages that have a little more spice to them.
Yeah, for sure.
And we wanted World War I to be represented well, and hopefully everyone that watched all the videos related to this particular match really appreciated this, because 100 years ago, this war ended.
Yep.
And this war has ramifications still to this day, and the millions that were lost in it are hard to overestimate.
Yeah.
On all sides.
Absolutely.
The loss is beyond, really hard to comprehend when you start talking millions.
It really is the whole world. We often think about it as just the Western Front. Germany, France, England, the U.S. right at the end. Yeah. But Belgium, Luxembourg, and then you've got all of the Balkans. You've got Russia. Russia lost a horrific.
The Turks.
The Turks.
Austrians. I mean, everybody.
You had fighting going on in Africa. You had French colonial troops from Africa, from Southeast Asia. It really was the World War.
Yep.
So
the numbers are hard to comprehend when you see a number on a piece of paper that says this many million lost. You're like, what does that even mean? So
it's a statistic.
That's why don't forget, because it's incredible that kind of thing could have happened, and it's a shame. But here we are 100 years later, and hopefully having an interesting match as a result of interesting equipment, but not forgetting the price that was paid for that.
It was so badly handled at the end that it led to a second World War.
Yeah.
But since that, we've managed to perhaps get a little bit wiser and not have a third one.
Not a world one.
Yeah.
So let's make that a noble goal.
Yeah, let's keep it that way. That seems a good thing to keep our track record on.
It does. So guys, hopefully you like this kind of stuff. InRange is, of course, Patreon only supported. We do not take monetization from any advertising or revenue generated anywhere else besides you guys, the viewer. So if you like us, please consider supporting our Patreon account. That's what keeps InRange alive.
That's what keeps me shooting this horribly expensive 8 Lebel ammo.
That's a good point. You went through a lot of that stuff in full auto today. And that's hopefully entertaining to the audience as well. And an interesting experience in that we learned how that gun works.
Yeah.
In a more dynamic real world environment. So if you can't do that, totally get it. You can subscribe to any of our channels. You can find them all on InRange.tv and share with your friends. Thanks for watching.